First, let's talk about the biggest shakeup the tech world has seen in the last few years as the Chinese AI platform DeepSeek has finally entered the chat. Now, what is DeepSeek and why are we hearing about it everywhere? It's not just another AI company or platform. DeepSeek has disrupted everything we thought we knew about AI and, more importantly, what it costs and what it takes environmentally to develop something like it. Now, the fallout we're seeing in the last few days is huge. A 1 trillion sell-off is taking place in the US and European stock markets. Nvidia alone took a $600 billion hit. It's been called the biggest single-day market loss in US history. Now, DeepSeek isn't using the massive GPU clusters that OpenAI, Google, or Anthropic have become known for. Instead, it's running on open source technology and super efficient model training techniques. But what does any of that actually mean in simple terms? Essentially what it means is that China has built advanced AI at the fraction of the cost. And it's already forcing investors, nations, and even the biggest tech companies to rethink and reevaluate what they thought is necessary to create a powerhouse AI giant. Just last week, the US had actually announced, and this is under the US President Donald Trump, $500 billion on Stargate. It would have been the largest infrastructure spend of this kind in history, and the goal had been, Stargate's goal was to build data centers and computing power for AI companies like OpenAI to compete globally. But now the release of DeepSeek changes that. Is this kind of investment going to actually be necessary? That's why DeepSeek isn't just being called a tech story. Its rise has sent shockwaves through the global AI race, obviously in the US primarily, but also in other countries too. Now, as we talk about China and the US, there's also this other crucial question. Where is India in this conversation? In the last few years, we've seen some incredible innovations. We have AI models built for our multilingual populations. And we've had some of those founders here on TBC too. But that question, are we lagging in the global AI race? Where are the Indian names when we talk about AI competitors like ChatGPT, like Claude, now like DeepSeek? Where are the Indian names? And also, we do want to touch on, and we will be talking a little bit today, in the last few hours, we're learning that DeepSeek is throwing up some interesting search results. Now remember, DeepSeek is open sourcing smaller versions of its R1 model. What does that mean? That means that developers can now run AI on standard laptops. They're not relying on external servers. And what this essentially means is that when you're using it, we're being told that it's secure and it can be trusted. Can it actually be trusted? Does the conversation stop there? And what about the search results DeepSeek is throwing up? So a few internet users said that DeepSeek was actually avoiding questions about Arunachal Pradesh and other northeastern states. In the India-China question, what does that mean? Should Indians and can Indians use DeepSeek to the degree they'd want to? To answer this and more questions, we have a number of guests with us here on the show. I'll just introduce you to both of the experts joining us this morning. So first we have Atul Tripathi. He's an AI and quantum and cyber security expert. He's with us this morning to tell us and break down everything we've just talked about. We also have Deepak Kapoor. He's a cyber expert who will be taking us a little further into the conversation. Okay, Atul, if we could come over to you first. I just want to ask you, initial thoughts, as we've seen over the last few days, the internet essentially go gaga over the release of DeepSeek, and it's now actually been a few days. I want to ask you, how much of that excitement is an overkill? How much of it is very, very worthy?
So good morning to everybody, and good morning, my co-panelists. So the question happens to be, how much is it an overkill? Now, let me put it this way. Every new product has its own excitement level, right? So remember the products that were launched, whether digitally or physically in the world, and we had all these excitement. Now, as far as DeepSeek is concerned, it is definitely a path-breaking as being claimed. Two reasons. One is the lack or the, not so much of computational power that is being used. And two, that the benchmarking that they have done against the other large language models, or LLMs as we call them, that seems to be better. Now, however, having said that, these are the very initial days before we even come down to the question, or we are able to answer with confidence that we are in the right direction, or whether it's hallucinating, the ethical considerations have been taken into consideration, all the ethical parameters, how are they able to explain the models, what is happening. We need to exploit that further before we even come down to the conclusion that yes, it is very, very good and it's far better. But having read the research paper, one, and having downloaded the open source model itself, it looks good, frankly speaking.
Okay, Atul, just stay with us. Let's go to Deepak to understand more. Deepak, I want to understand from you. On the internet, everyone is saying that it's a side project. So part of what makes DeepSeek so special is that for the company that invested and created it, the hedge fund that created it, this was not the main thing they were trying to do in China. This was a side project. This was a few young developers in their 30s, all of who had attended some of the top universities within China, and then they'd created this. How much of that is real? How much can we confirm for our audiences in that story?
Hi, good morning, everybody. Your viewers, the anchor, my co-panelist. Thank you for having me. Just to clarify a little, while you introduced me in a single sentence, I just want to say that, I've been working a lot with technology and I've been working on policy. So, I mean, to say that I'm a cyber expert would not be entirely correct. Yes, I've done a lot of policy in cryptocurrency and I know how to use the tools to well, let's say I'm not very likable among people who commit crimes and extremely high-end things, especially when it comes to country security level. So yes, I do have a little interest and knowledge about what you said. Now, coming back to what you just said, I think it's your statement itself counters the question. You said there's this hedge fund. Hedge fund means a lot of money. You said it is China. We all know what China does. You said that it is people from extremely good universities, well-educated people, which means they have the talent and the expertise and the technology. Now you put them all together. Now where does it land us? China has a track record of doing things. So anything that is China, I think we have all the major countries who have doubts about Chinese equipment suppliers, especially technology. And I think, bar none, everybody is, accused China of snooping in some way or the other. So what I would I think it's initial days. I think this is another step in China's dominance plan. I think they are looking at economic warfare. They are looking at technology warfare, and this is where the wars are leading us to. And the big goal is economic dominance again, which they seem to have lost after the COVID battle. It is also a battle of perceptions, and I think this entire thing, including cryptocurrency, and I worked quite a bit on cryptocurrency, including on Hamas and other things. And I was covered, I was with Anand Narasimhan earlier on the Israel thing during the war. I look at all these things not as isolated, events. I look at these things as connected to each other. The internet world is connected. The cyber and global world is connected. It is not as simple as you or me being targets of phishing attacks and one account being swiped off all funds and we see a zero balance. No, it's not. It's way beyond that. It is, I think this is manipulation at its supported by technology, supported by countries with a very deep state attitude or a deep state goal of dominance in various players.
Okay, one second. Deepak, one second. I do want to ask Atul if he agrees with your perspective. It's a very particular perspective. I want to ask Atul. Atul, would you go so far as to say that it is and correct me, Deepak, if I'm summarizing your point wrong, but that it is deep state manipulation, it's something we need to be careful of?
So let me partially agree with Deepak what he's saying. I would not deny about it. He brought out 3 points. One is China, 2 is technology, and 3 is the hedge fund money that is there. 3 playing interplaying among themselves. This is quite possible that there's a high chances that this is an interplay of all 3 of them. But then let me be very frank with you. This is what is happening across the world. Okay. So let's not play around with the words that everybody else is bad and China is good or China is bad. And I'm not denying or I'm not supporting or accusing anybody of it. It's going to be the same. However, yes, one has to be very cautious when you look at it, this technology that is coming out of China. Because one of the reasons why we banned TikTok, if you remember, or PUBG, was the fact that there was a lot of data stealing. And we also banned those applications, the Chinese applications, was primarily because of the data stealing that they were doing at the back end. Now, we don't know. This is just recently launched by the Chinese. What is the trapdoors that they have in mind? Now, we're seeing a lot of cases of, cases being filed against OpenAI itself and the other large language models that are there. Claude is being OpenAI is very popularly right now under DNPA. Right? There's a case that has been filed by DNPA and other news channels as well. For this, they have scraped data without the due permission of people. Now, my question happens to be on the similar lines. What are the trapdoors that you have? What are the things that you have got in mind? Second is, as I pointed out initially as well, and you also pointed out during your introduction, that questions regarding China, questions regarding Arunachal. Let's take our strategic way. So it's also a way of influencing our minds.
Right.
So you start influencing today, tomorrow you will see the results coming out, and that was one of the reasons why we banned all these applications. And this is going to be happening in coming, maybe, may not be. However, just has to be one has to be very, very cautious before one comes down to that final conclusion that everything is good and everything is hunky dory. Well, in today's technology world,
nothing is, as Deepak is warning us. Atul, yes. Can I just ask you a short question, and then I want to go back to Deepak, but I do want to ask if you can really break it down for our viewers with a simple analogy. How many times faster or greater is DeepSeek if you compare it to what exists already? So ChatGPT, what did the paper try to put forth in terms of just quantifying how much better it was?
So the paper actually talks about in terms of the computation. And they claim to be that they are using 27 times less power of computation. Now that actually, if you multiply it into a few ramifications and look at the ramifications in other aspects of life, one is obviously you wouldn't need so much of powerful GPUs that are currently there in the market. And we are seeing what is happening with the stocks of NVIDIA and other GPU manufacturing companies. That's one. The paper also talks about the fact that they are faster and more precise. Now, when you say more precise, what do you mean to say more precise? Ask a question on Tiananmen Square to this, OpenAI, this
and it may
platform.
not, answer it.
It does not give answers. I've done that myself. You talk about Arunachal, it gives out all kind of hallucinating answers, which are not factually correct. You talk about the China-Pakistan corridor, CPEC, interesting answers come out of it. You talk about the Taiwan thing. It does not acknowledge Taiwan as an independent country or an independent state altogether. Gives out a lot of negative statements. I'm not again saying that others don't, but one has to be very cautious about all these things before one comes on. So in terms of precision, it is about the computational power that is very important. That is where they claim to be the big winner. And let's try it out. Let's see how it works out. Before we come down to the final conclusion that yes, it is true that it's not incorrect, factually incorrect, or scientifically incorrect, or mathematically incorrect.
Okay, Deepak, can I ask you, I think the question that Indian Twitter at least has been really, really chattering about in the last few hours is where's the Indian equivalent? We've had, in the past, we've talked about Bharat GPT, we've talked about Sarvam. When it comes to multilingual chat GPTs, to some degree that exists in India. But where do you think India is missing out? Is it a question of brain drain, that our talent works abroad? Do you think that idea is correct? Some are arguing that no, it's that India's biggest apps are apps that are versions of apps that already exist around the world. That's the problem. Where do you see the issue?
Well, there are a couple of things. One, if there is a brain drain, not everything is going out. So I think we have a surplus of brains. Let me just be a little optimistic on that part. So, and I'm also co-founder of the call center BPO Association of India. So we've seen enough brain and enough drain both on the sides. And we've done a lot of global business, and we've been, the so-called, poster boys to be hit with during US elections among, the IT professionals. We were the only ones that were being talked about as the bad people who are taking jobs. Now, that's one part. Second, you just spoke about where India is. India is today. See, I think we're a very large country. We have a lot of positive. education system is good. I mean, for the very simple reason that we have so many. I think let me just put it a different way. We have so much Indian DNA in the leadership of various tech companies. Now, coming back to what we are doing as India, of course, you did name a couple of initiatives that the government is really pushing. The industry is very enthused. We have very large tech companies who understand that if they do not innovate, if they are not with the times, or if they do not step at least an inch ahead of the times, they will not survive positions in the future. Now, look at Nvidia. I mean, who would have thought a few years, even 10 years back, that a company could lose or an industry could lose almost $1 trillion, and of which of 70% would, 75% or 80% would just be one company. They would lose, paper, and stocks are paper money. Let's just put it that. Of course, there's value, but technically, there's paper money. Now, who would have thought of that? Now, we live in very different times, and as we speak, I think the stocks of Microsoft and Nvidia have already started recovering. So I think it's a big, yeah. And I want to, if you allow me, I just want to go to an earlier point made a couple of minutes back. About what China is doing or what China is not doing. Now, how many times have we witnessed in the history of any new technology that companies who are trillion-dollar companies or close to trillion-dollar companies, or very large companies and leaders in their field, they've been affected within weeks. I mean, their stocks have gone down by such amounts, and there's a China factor. I think we need to look a little more closely. We need to focus the magnifying glass properly so that that the picture is not hazy. We need to investigate this. Okay. The other thing I think that has been talked about is open source. Now, my co-panelist, Mr. Tripathi, he's already delved quite a bit on it, and I'm not going to get into details, but I'm just going to pick up 2 points from what he very rightly said. Anything that does not suit the China narrative is not being talked about by DeepSeek.
Right.
Now, when we talk about open source, we and especially in sense of technology, we only discuss how much of technology or how much of openness the technology is providing. I think we live in a very different world. We also need to.
Deepak, we're running out of time. We just have a minute left, so I do want to go back to Atul to ask him a question too. Atul, I want to take to you because it's too important a question to not take to both the guests. When it comes to the India question, what do you think is missing in the India story? What do you think India needs to build more of, if that's indeed what's necessary here?
So there are 2 things that I would like to highlight. One is India needs to, and which we are doing, I will not deny about it, we are building our own solutions for our own people. We are not here, and we should not even, that's my personal opinion, that we should not be getting into a race which is not going to be beneficial for us economically. There's a lot of money that is riding. So let's be very judicious with the money that we are playing around with. And most important point is that unless and until these technologies solve our problems, what is the use of it? I mean, I may be solving everybody else's problem, but if I cannot solve my own house problem, then what is the use of me being very capable person as an individual? Similarly, just imagine the same thing happening with the technology as well. So we are doing it. Second is on the second point of the thing is that the languages. So we are multilingual. We have got so many dialects and speech and data. Just imagine what we can do. Data is the key, right? Everybody is fighting for data. Here we have so much of data with it, either spoken or written. And with 5,000 plus years of history, and with a language as rich as and as old as Sanskrit, which is supposed to be 5,000 plus years ago, and scientifically, so we are in a very good position. And it's not that we are not doing it; we are doing it. So you see a lot of these young companies, they're solving our problems, which is very big requirement for our people, rather than getting around and playing around the games that may not be very feasible for our conditions.
So you're saying allow companies to continue solving the issues that they are solving. These are the right questions for us in India to be looking at right now. That's an interesting perspective, one we haven't heard so far. Atul, Deepak, thank you so much for joining us, for shedding some light on this topic. Okay, we're going to head into a quick break now. After the break, we are switching focus entirely. We're still taking a look at tech, and we're taking a look at Indian tech. ISRO is launching its 100th mission, and we're going to take a little bit of a look at that exactly what took place at around 6 a.m. this morning and what it means for India. On the other side in just a few minutes.